Oh my goodness, hold on to your seats because this one is a bombshell. Candace Owens has just said out loud what millions of people have been whispering behind closed doors, and let me tell you, once you hear it, you won't be able to unhear it. She's pointing her finger straight at Meghan Markle, accusing her of weaving a web of lies so polished, so carefully coated in royal glitter, that the moment the mask slips, the whole fairy tale threatens to crumble. But wait, this time, it's not just opinions floating around, not just internet chatter or gossip magazine speculation. No, no, no. We're talking about insider voices, a hospital insider who was actually there, who knows how things really work behind the polished doors of Portland Hospital in London. The details that are spilling out, they're not the kind you'll find in glossy photo shoots or carefully staged Netflix specials. These are raw, unfiltered truths, the kind of truths people only whisper when the lights go off, when the cameras are gone, and the microphones are safely unplugged. And once you put Candace Owens' explosive findings side by side with these first-hand accounts, the cracks in Meghan's story don't just appear, they explode wide open. We're about to dive headfirst into a storm that shakes the very foundations of the fairy tale Harry and Meghan have been selling. The fairy tale collides with reality. Let's rewind to Harry's memoir, Spare. Buried in its pages is a line so unforgettable it has now become the epicenter of this storm. Harry claims Meghan had not one but 2 epidurals, gave birth at Portland Hospital, and was back at Frogmore Cottage within a mere 2 hours. Pause, breathe, let's think. 2 epidurals, birth, home within 2 hours. For anyone who has even the faintest understanding of childbirth, this isn't just suspicious. It's like trying to jam puzzle pieces from 3 different boxes into one picture. It doesn't fit, it can't fit. Because let's face it, the drive alone from Portland Hospital in central London to Frogmore Cottage in Windsor can take an hour, sometimes more, depending on traffic. So, if Harry's account is literal, Meghan would have had to give birth, recover, gather belongings, pack up, and head out within barely an hour of delivery. All while under the effects of not 1 but 2 epidurals, a serious medical procedure that requires time, monitoring, and recovery. Even without the royal title, any mother listening to this would say, "Are you kidding me? That's impossible." And folks, that's only the beginning. Meghan's 3 different stories. Now here's where things get really messy. Meghan herself has offered not 1, not 2, but 3 completely different versions of why the press wasn't notified about Archie's birth. First, she said they didn't want to block an emergency hospital entrance. Then she claimed the press was racist and didn't deserve a photo. And finally, she insisted they did notify the press, but that no one showed up. 3 stories, 3 narratives, not one of them perfectly matches the other. And when you're dealing with the royal family, where protocol and timing are everything, those inconsistencies are like flashing red alarms. Because according to centuries of royal tradition, the Queen herself was supposed to be notified the very moment a royal went into labor. That didn't happen. And if Meghan really was in Portland under royal watch, her own security team would have broken centuries of protocol. From the very first breath of Archie's story, we are already tangled in contradictions. And my friends, we are only at the starting line. Inside Portland Hospital, glamour versus reality. Let's shine a light on Portland Hospital itself. Forget about busy NHS wards and chaotic emergency rooms. Portland is in a league of its own. Private, exclusive, dripping with chandeliers, flowers, and luxury suites. It's the celebrity maternity hotspot, where births are wrapped in glamour. But here's the crucial detail no one likes to talk about. Portland has no public emergency department. None. Instead, it has specialized units. A neonatal intensive care unit for fragile babies, and a maternal critical care unit for mothers with high-risk conditions. Beyond that, if things spiral, Portland doesn't keep you. They transfer you. So when you picture 2 epidurals, emergency interventions, and a lightning-fast discharge, the question practically screams from the walls. Could Portland even support such a scenario? Or are we being fed a spa-like fantasy designed for glossy PR rather than grounded in medical reality? 2 epidurals? Really? Now, here comes one of the strangest, jaw-dropping details. The 2 epidurals. Anyone who has ever spoken to a doctor, a midwife, or even read a childbirth forum knows an epidural isn't like popping 2 painkillers. It's a full medical procedure. A small catheter is inserted into the spine. Once it's in place, doctors adjust the dosage as needed. Stronger, lighter, topped up, yes. But it's one catheter, one system. So when Harry wrote Meghan had 2 epidurals, the medical community blinked in disbelief. For 2 epidurals to happen, the doctor would need to remove the catheter and insert a brand new one during labor. That is almost never done unless there's a serious complication. It's like saying you had 2 steering wheels installed in the same car just to keep driving. It doesn't make sense. And then, as if things weren't bizarre enough, Harry throws in a little comedy sketch of inhaling all the laughing gas that was supposed to be for Meghan. Sounds funny, right? Except in reality, that gas is closely supervised supervised by nurses and strictly for the patient. Hospitals don't leave canisters lying around like party favors at a sleepover. Either Harry is stretching the truth for laughs, or the policies we know hospitals follow were tossed out the window. Either way, the story feels staged. Now let's talk about time, the one thing every childbirth demands, and the very thing Meghan and Harry's story bulldozes through. Harry paints this picture of speed, baby delivered, bags packed, and off they go back at Frogmore Cottage in just 2 hours. 2 hours. But ask any mother, midwife, or doctor, and they'll tell you childbirth isn't a drive-through window. It's not order, collect, and go. Even in the smoothest, no complication vaginal births, mothers are typically monitored for at least 24 to 48 hours. That's not luxury, that's basic safety. Add an epidural, monitoring time stretches even longer because doctors need to be sure anesthesia doesn't cause complications. Blood pressure swings, mobility issues, sudden bleeding. Now imagine a C-section. That's major surgery, incisions, stitches, infection risks, standard recovery, 3 to 4 days in hospital minimum, anything less, and you're basically gambling with a woman's life. So when Harry insists Meghan had 2 epidurals and was home in 2 hours, it slams into the reality wall. Doctors call it impossible discharge timing. You don't leave a hospital after major anesthesia like you're leaving a dinner party. According to Harry, Meghan was back at Frogmore within hours, but within weeks of Archie's birth, the couple were already jetting off. Ibiza with Elton John, Paris, Italy, New York for Serena Williams, even Toronto. Travel upon travel, flights stacked on flights, glamorous public appearances. Yet postpartum recovery, especially with preeclampsia, demands the exact opposite: rest, supervision, and relentless monitoring. So how does this line up? It doesn't. And Harry's cheerful announcement to the press that Meghan and Archie were home the same day? That's not just suspicious, it's downright chilling when held against the brutal realities of maternal health. Our hospital insider was blunt. You cannot treat preeclampsia at home. You cannot wing it. You cannot gamble with those numbers. The little details that crack the story take, for example, the mystery surrounding the doctor who supposedly delivered Archie. Reports initially named Dr. Penelope Law. Sounds respectable, official, reassuring, but then another physician came forward and flat out denied that she had been involved at all. Think about that. A royal birth is one of the most scrutinized events on earth, and yet we can't even get the delivery doctor's identity straight. One newspaper ran with the story, another dug deeper and corrected it. If the press can't even agree on the basic fact of who caught the royal baby, what else was misreported? What else was polished and repackaged before it reached the public? For an institution that thrives on precision, secrecy, and tradition, this kind of discrepancy is not a small slip. It's a red flag waving furiously in the wind. The miscarriage narrative. And then, as if the birth story weren't complicated enough, along came the miscarriage narrative. Harry wrote with heartbreaking sincerity about burying fetal remains at home after Meghan's miscarriage. It was presented as raw, emotional, deeply personal. But according to medical professionals in California law, the details don't quite line up. Here's the issue. In California, fetal remains under 20 weeks are handled in specific medical ways. They aren't casually handed over to families for backyard burials. There are procedures, regulations, and protocols that must be followed. So when Harry's version paints this quiet, almost cinematic moment of laying remains to rest at home, it clashes with what the law says should have happened. And once again, what should have been an undisputedly tragic personal event gets clouded with doubt and inconsistency. Even Meghan's friend, actress Abigail Spencer, told a version of the miscarriage story that clashed with Harry's account. It's as if two actors were reading entirely different scripts for the same role. And that, my friends, doesn't just raise eyebrows, it shakes the credibility of everything else they've said. The fairy tale facade layer after layer, the contradictions pile up. 2 epidurals that don't medically make sense. Preeclampsia that should have required days, even weeks of monitoring, but apparently vanished like smoke. Travel schedules that look like the itinerary of a rock star, not a recovering mother. Midnight chicken runs that couldn't have happened. A secret elevator that doesn't exist. It all feels less like a lived experience and more like a screenplay. A glossy, polished fairy tale written for public consumption. Candace Owens wasn't afraid to call it what millions were already whispering: lies. And when you place her claims side by side with the testimony of an actual hospital insider, the contrast is almost painful. Because while Meghan's version glitters with soft lights, quick recoveries, and spa-like imagery, the insider's version is raw and brutal. IV drips, magnesium sulfate, constant surveillance, and life-or-death decisions. And those two realities cannot coexist. One of them is true, the other is a performance. The bigger picture: trust shattered. And this, right here, is the heart of it all. Because this isn't just about whether Meghan fibbed about candles or whether Harry exaggerated about laughing gas. It's about something far deeper: trust. The royal family isn't just about crowns and castles. It's about image, legacy, and the fragile contract between monarchy and public. When a story as private, as sacred as the birth of a child gets wrapped up in PR gloss and contradictory details, what does that say about everything else? If Meghan really faced life-threatening preeclampsia but told the world she skipped home in record time, what message does that send to mothers who've nearly died from the same condition? If Harry really did embellish details of hospital antics, what else in Spare is part truth and part fantasy? And perhaps most damning of all, if royal protocols like informing the Queen were casually ignored, what does that say about Meghan and Harry's respect, or lack thereof, for the very institution they walked away from? The gossip that won't die. Here's the thing about gossip. Sometimes it fizzles. Sometimes it burns hot for a week and disappears. But then there are stories like this. Stories so layered, so full of contradictions that they refuse to die. Every time Meghan or Harry step into the spotlight, every time they drop a new interview, every time a memoir line resurfaces, the whispers grow louder, the questions return, the inconsistencies scream for answers, and with figures like Candace Owens fueling the fire, dragging those contradictions into the daylight, this isn't going away. In fact, it's only getting bigger. The conclusion: when fairy tales crumble. So here we are, staring at the rubble of a fairy tale that once captivated the world. What began as a dazzling royal romance, an American actress swept into Buckingham's gilded halls, has fractured into suspicion, scandal, and gossip so relentless it could power the tabloids for decades. Two epidurals that make no sense. A hospital with no emergency ward being painted as a spa-like retreat. Midnight meals from restaurants that weren't even open. A secret elevator that exists only in fantasy. Doctors misnamed, laws misquoted, friends contradicting each other. At some point, the cracks grow too wide to ignore. At some point, the glossy finish wears off and the raw wood underneath is revealed. And what we're left with is simple but devastating. Something in this story does not line up. Candace Owens put it bluntly. The hospital insider confirmed it through lived experience. And now the world is left to decide, do we believe the polished fairy tale, or do we face the messy, uncomfortable, unglamorous truth? Because when the cracks are this wide, when the contradictions are this bold, the fairy tale doesn't just shimmer, it crumbles. And in that crumbling, we're forced to confront the possibility that what was sold as truth may have been nothing more than a performance. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the gossip no one was supposed to hear.